Embers of Hope by Neon Zangetsu, Chapter 12, Going for a Walk, Part 2. They're destined for greatness. They shouldn't be mucking around like this. And they will be great someday, but right now they're little children, so why not let them play the part? After all, it isn't a role they'll have forever. Salem and Ospen / the calm before the storm. Going for a Walk, Part 2. Nora was a simple gal. You see, she liked to smash things. Enemy, smash it. Problem, smash it. White Bang, you guessed it. Nora smash! With a triumphant cry, Manhill came crashing down in an overhead slam to underground and flesh alike. Bloody red dirt burst into the air. Members of the White Bang flew with it like toy soldiers. Their brethren were still airborne when Salem's resident Valkyrie whacked her hammer back and forth and set still more screaming into the skies above. More than a few unlikely souls vanished before the horizon entirely. Oops, she winced a little as they fell to their death upon the mountain below. Those who survived the impact, well, it wouldn't be her hammer that would kill them. Yep, surely was the sudden stop that did them in, and totally not her fault. Booyah! She planted her weapon and set one hand to her eyes as she watched her victims arc helplessly overhead. That's 10 for me. 20! A grinning Winter scattered past on a glimmering road of glyphs, flanked by a murderer of Nevermore. Hey! And Nora stomped a booted foot at the sight. No fair using your summoned. That's cheating. Weiss whipped by and webbed up a score more. I'm sorry. Did you say something? Show offs, the lot of ya. Nora didn't have a transformation to fall back on, nor a fancy grim parasite to rely upon. Just her strength and her hammer. Maybe that did make her simple, maybe not. She wasn't one for strategy, just point and smash. Some called her broken for that. Others claimed she wasn't good for anything other than swinging a hammer. She wasn't clever like Winter and Weiss. Couldn't eviscerate people with a glance like Cinder. She didn't possess Yang's bombastic personality or even a fifth of Blake's patience. Ruby could run circles around her to say nothing to the rest of the family, and that was okay. She wasn't terribly smart or even particularly fast compared to the others, but she was loud and proud. She was strong. If someone upset her, they got a hammer to the head. If someone laid a hand on her, the hand came off, because you see, Nora was simple. She liked simple. Simple was good. Simple had given her friends, family, and people she loved. She liked simple people like Salem and Naruto, for if the former gave her a place to belong, the latter truly made that place a home. Ren, well, he didn't understand sometimes, but that wasn't his fault. He'd see someday. She would make him see. He thought the pool of darkness would change her, but he didn't get it. Nor already knew who she was, with or without him. Be strong and hit his stuff. That was her. She did that, and she was the one you sent in to break legs. Speaking of which, 4! Manhill swept up under a tank, catching the vehicle in a vicious broadside. Bereft of balance, the hulking metal craft crashed backwards, now little more than a tumbling mess of metal and death. Wait, why did they have a tank? Nora squinted after the blocky white and black thing as the vehicle kept rolling, watching it flatten a score of rather unlucky tourists that didn't get out of the way in time. Huh. That was new. The tank, not their overall stupidity. Since when did the White Fang have tanks? This was supposed to be a simple outfit. Had they landed in a stronghold by mistake? Such things shattered as a stray shot struck her in the chest and pinged off aura. It did nothing to lessen the impact. Right in the boob. And she doubled over with a growl and straightened thrice as quickly. You'll pay for that! With a merry flick of a wrist, her devastation hammer became a growling grenade launcher. Don't you know how to treat a lady? Apparently not, because they opened fire on her with gusto. She tumbled out of the way and came up firing as she ran to the right. Clouds of pink smoke and the pained cries of her prey rewarded her. The gunfire fell still, and a strange calm fell over the killing grounds, broken only by the distant sound of combat. Was that it? Her shoulders began to slump. All right, that settled. Something hit her. In hindsight, Nora didn't so much see the round as she did feel it, for the powerful explosion crashed into her back and sent her crashing into the muck, head spinning, knees weak, arms heavy. She thrashed upright and to find herself face to face with the looming barrel. Literally, it pivoted down, and too late, she realized what she failed to see. Her ears rang. Someone called her name. Stunned and dazed, she couldn't even find the strength to move, let alone stand. Ah, boo! Because there was a second tank. The barrel barked and Nora closed her eyes against it. Her aura was already low before the first shot. A second at this round would eviscerate her. Nora! Someone's pale hand swept in from the side and closed around the long barrel, crumpling hardened metal into tinfoil. With nowhere to go, and dust round slammed so forward and detonated against the sealed casing with a dull whump of sound. It detonated in all its fury glory. Nora flung up an arm against it in a desperate attempt to shield her face, but the blast never reached her. Something simply sucked all the heat away as if a black hole had opened within the blaze. She soon saw why. Naruto stood tall through the fire and flames and cloaked trailing ember of light. Fully transformed, he looked just like his mother. Eyes the color of blood swept down and found her at his feet, narrowed when he saw her sprawling down on hands and bent knee, his mouth settling into a grimace. Viney whiskered cheeks dimpled in mild concern. His gaze swung back to the tank and its now ruined barrel. That, he all but growled about it, wasn't very nice. To the pilot's credit, they realized the peril immediately and tried to reverse course. They didn't get far. The Prince of the Rim yanked on the barrel and reeled them back in. Then he punched it. Just one punch, little more than a flick of his wrist, really. Clenched nickels barreled into the vehicle, and casing flew apart with a looked like a house of cards, spraying metal in every direction. Within the now skittled frame, trembling member of the White Fang gazed back at them. Their hands rose in timid surrender. Mercy! Naruto didn't grant them it. Instead, his frown redoubled. Did you show her any? The man wilted. His masked gaze flitted between the two of them. He reached for his sidearm. A knife sailed from Naruto's sleeve and struck the fungus between the eyes just above their mask. They slumped over at the wheel and dead as the snow underfoot. With that, Nora released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding, and yet a seed of envy took root in her heart. This was power. If she just had that, he wouldn't have to save her again. She was so tired of being saved, first by Ren so long ago, then Uncle Hazel, and now Naruto himself. How could she help her? How could she help others when she could barely help herself? One of the replica assailants came at her with an axe out of the smoke. They received a rousy roundhouse for their troubles and crumbled bonelessly to the floor. Another came at Naruto from the right, only to be met by a wave of red light. It cut the poor bastard in half. Yet a third fell to a strange snarling sphere. That one didn't so much die as he did cease to exist, shredded apart as the keening blue light expanded into a green globe and whisked them away. Watch your flank! He clasped her hand and hauled her into his side. You can regenerate like us. Your aura can only take so much. She flinched, but a little beneath his blazing gaze. A booted foot scuffed the ground as she looked down. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. He clapped her shoulders once and gave it a firm squeeze. Be better. Gotcha. She forced a smile to her face, one she didn't quite feel. That's what it came down to in the end. Being better. For all her bluster and bravado, she just wasn't equipped to take on an army by herself. Not yet. Maybe she was looking for validation in the wrong places. Maybe it wasn't wrong that Rennie didn't want to understand her. Rather, he couldn't. At least Naruto didn't chastise her for being herself. With a nod, he shot past and threw himself back into the fray, as did the others. Weiss ducked a fresh volley of fire and used her parasite symbiote to restrain a group of terrorists in innoxious black webbing. Winter wasn't nearly so gentle. She was an angel of death, gliding across the field of battle, sparing not who crossed her path. By contrast, Naruto was downright restrained. He cracked heads with the best of them. Without a weapon of his own at that, he was forced to use his fists and other more esoteric methods. He straightened up. He straight up punched shit to death. Really, it wasn't fair. She wished she could do that. Nora bounded after them, hammer in hand. Still, the White Fang were usually organized today. In that they were putting up more of a spirited fight than usual. Originally, they were comprised of chaff and weaklings, little more than disposable soldiers for the cause, fools who flew at the first sign of trouble or fought and fell within minutes. This lot was. She ducked as the chainsaw blade nearly took her head off. Surprisingly well trained. Filthy human bitch! A man's voice bellowed. Die! She found herself face to face with the great hulking brute of a faunus, easily head and shoulders above her. His scars lined thick forearms, horned by years of training, hardened muscles coupled with sheer resolve. That was all well and good, but it was his weapon that truly caught Nora's eye. He had a chainsaw. Now that was metal. Wait, what had he called her? I'm not a bitch, she cried out, igniting with rage. I'm Nora, take that back. He attacked with the roar of his own. Never! That awful weapon revved and cut down on her face, forcing her to block with the haft of her hammer, lest she lose a limb. The sheer force of it sent her skipping away. Her heart skipped a beat, and not from fear. She surged back in. Finally, a real fight. Nothing like those silly sparks back in the tower. This man was trying to kill her. A grin tore across her face. Good. That meant she could kill him right back. Hammer made chainsaw with bone-crushing force, such that the earth split beneath their feet and blast both their weapons both their weapons blast back. Nora steadied herself easily enough, even as her foe staggered. Maghiel swung up with sound and aplomb, forcing him to block. He cried out in pain. The noise stirred something in her, something dark, something angry. Come on, big boy, Shalpat howled the words, grinning from fear from ear to ear. Show me what you got. Years spent in Salem's domain had honed Nora's skills to a razored edge, lent her a raw mastery over aura and brute strength that she never had otherwise possessed. She used those skills now, shrugged off hits that she had no business tanking, barreling through blows that should have disboweled her. They raged back and forth like monsters, turned into one another without a care in the world. Before long, Nora realized someone was laughing. It was her. This was what she craved, what she'd been born to do: swing a hammer and smite her enemies. No need to fret or think or feel any guilt towards any of her decisions. It gave her a gift she'd not been aware of. Never in her life had she needed something so much, and never known until she received it. This gave her an outlet, and by the gods, did she need it? And all of her stress, all of her pain, all of her fear, every bit of it. And then, quite suddenly, her adversary died. She didn't even mean to kill him. The brute simply mistimed a blow, to which her instincts sang and struck. Maghiel swept through his defenses to find his skull. One swing was all it took. A simple, solid strike, and his head flew from his shoulders, left behind his body crumpled bonelessly to the floor. Someone screamed. She killed the Bonesaw monster! Demon! Bonesaw? What kind of silly name was that? No, not enough. He died too soon. Not satisfied, she rounded on another Fang member with a snarl. The man saw her and crashed backwards as he babbled for mercy. Nor didn't hear him. She stomped forward when her hammer met his head. Someone screamed, and she pivoted, driving her hammer between their ribs, followed by a third, a fourth, then a fifth. Blood spattered, and she gave into the madness, destroying any who dared to cross her. There was only the battle, only the glorious chase of carnage. Rip and tear until it is done. Nora! Someone's hand came down on her shoulder. She rounded on its owner with a snarl and brought her hammer crashing into their face. A hand caught it, the steel folded beneath their grasp. Hey! Gentle blue eyes met hers, rooting her in place. It's done. They've surrendered. She snarled back at him. I'm not done. Rip and... He flipped her forehead with two fingers. Boop! And there it was. That was the word, the one she held so near and dear to her heart. Reality snapped back in like a rubber band. Her hammer fell, and the haze with it. She blinked rapidly as the world swam into focus. Pain was slow to return, but when it did, she found herself slumping, weakened as the adrenaline left her system. Even now, her body craved it, and it was all she could do just to ignore the urge to rend her enemies. Naruto beaked back at her. Yeesh, if you're this strong before taking a dip, I can't wait to see what you'll be like after. His exhausted eyes met his. You're not mad? Why would I be? His smile shone like the sun itself. We're family. He spread his arms. Well, Red didn't like it when I get too crazy. I'm not like Ren. Naruto's golden brow turned stormy. I'm talking to you. Something shifted in Nora's heart. She craved that smile, the raw admiration in those soft azure orbs, like nothing else. Maybe she wasn't to blame after all. Ren was Ren. He would always be Ren, even Ren ever a part of her world. But now, well, maybe it was time she did something for herself. Maybe she ought to be selfish, just this once. Her legs spurred her forward, her hands closed around his face and dragged him down, her lips sealed against his, stifling any and all chance of protest on his part. As far as first kisses went, it was a clumsy one, little more than a peck really, but for the first time since she'd met him, Naruto didn't have a comeback. He just stared at her, gaped, even as she pulled away. Had she broken him? That wouldn't do. She knocked him over on the head, and that seemed to stir him somewhat. Marry me? The words stumbled out of her mouth before she could think to hold them back. Wait, what? Naruto choked on his spit. Excuse me? You're excused, she chirped. Now then, what's going on here? Any response he might have given died a bitter death as someone stumbled out of a tent. Well, one of the few they hadn't burned down. Nora had all of an instant to take in golden eyes, tan striped skin, and dark hair before she was upon them. A chain whip flicked into her hand, and despite her best efforts, Nora winced. Looked like she knew how to use that thing too. Aw, crap. She heard Naruto hiss under his breath. That's Sienna-Khan. She's not supposed to be here. Winter flourished her saber. She's about to be a dead Khan. The prince reached around and pushed her saber down. Maybe not. Naruto. Weiss released her symbiote and emerged, looking deathly pale. What now? Now you trust me? He muttered softly, then his gaze fell to Sienna. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. Why, hello there. I wasn't aware we were in the presence of royalty, Sienna bridled. Says the boy who serves a Shnee. Serve? Naruto tilted his head. I serve no one. Think of us as partners of a sort. Why don't we stop all these unpleasantries and just talk? There's nothing to talk about. The leader of the White Fang crossed her arms. We're on a peaceful mission distributing aid. A blonde brow quirked. With tanks? They were meant to protect us against the Grim. She spared a glance at the ruined weapons. So much for Atlas Tech. Yeah, bullshit. Nora didn't believe her for a second. I understand. Sienna, really I do. Naruto's already pleasant voice dropped to a low, presumable throb, the kind he used when he really poured the charm. We needn't be enemies. He extended a pale palm in friendship as the bemused Nora looked on. If we'd known you were here, that you were taking these supplies to innocent fathers across the globe, we never would have attacked. You killed our people. Only those who attacked us. He steeped his fingers, and we're sorry for that. Nora blinked once, twice, thrice. Realization broke like the dawn. Oh, he's using the voice again. Oh, voice? Weiss whispered aside to her. What voice? What are you talking about? Did you hit your head back there? The sister's knee pressed in around her, idly fascinated as the unlikely duo began to bicker. While Sienna did the bickering, Naruto deflected her every argument into the dirt. Whatever she said, whichever insult she flung to him, he simply redirected with ease of a skilled negotiator. His persuading voice silly. Nora hushed her. Just watch. He'll win them over in 3, 2, 1. Sienna-eyed Naruto now open hand like Sienna-eyed Naruto's now open hand like a king kaijutsu. Eventually, she accepted it. Naruto beamed as they shook. Welcome to the family. Winter sighed softly to herself. This is utter bull shit. Salem finished as he watched the bullhead return with a keen eye. How does he keep restricting nearly everyone I send him to slay? I would seem it would seem he's made new friends. She huffed and crossed both arms beneath her bosom. New friends, indeed. They're destined for greatness. She skulked as Osmond stepped up beside her. They shouldn't be mucking around like this. A hand waved flippantly as a rather shell-shocked Sienna stepped out of a craft after him, golden eyes gone wide. How will they be feared if they befriend every enemy they meet? And they will be somebody. We already know this. Osmond laid a hand on hers. But already now they're still children, so why not let them play the part? After all, he nudged her a bit, showing the landing part. It isn't a role they'll play. Isn't the role they'll have forever. See for yourself. Together they looked down, only to find that his arrival had drawn attention in other ways as well. Big brother! Below their vantage point, Naruto's scowl became a dopey grin as a dark streak slammed into his legs. Aha! He looked down with a smile. There you are, Elsa. Who's my favorite little sister? And she wrinkled her nose at him. I'm your only sister. He laughed. Precisely. Ironwood tore at his hair. It was all falling apart, all of it. Salem had agents everywhere, in Bill and Bakural, Mistral and Menagerie, now even Atlas itself. He'd heard of the White Fang attack. There was more than meets the eye here. He knew it. He just knew. Some said he was jumping at shadows, that he insisted even seeing enemies where no foes were to be found. Osprey wouldn't see sense. Leonardo fobbed him off with false promises fade. Theodore was less than useless, content to bunker down in the natural defenses afforded by shade rather risk himself on the field. Fools, the lot of them. They were blind, but he would make them see. He would save the world, even if he had to drag it kicking and screaming to safety. He wouldn't let it happen. He knew what was best for Atlas, best for a remnant. He would protect this world, even if no one else would. His fist swung the door to his office open. There was someone waiting for him there, sitting behind his desk. Good evening, General. The hooded figure tilted their head, and for a moment he thought he had the impression sight of a smiling face beneath the cowl. Don't you come in? Whoever they were, he couldn't see their face, hidden as it was behind a mask. Due process snapped up, cocked and ready to fire. And who are you? My name isn't important. A gloved hand weaved carelessly. Just think of me as a friend. One with a vested interest in the destruction of your enemies. He tittered as some unspoken jest, and James suspected there was a smile behind that usually facade of his. I hear you have a Salem problem, and you know this. How? Knowing is my business. The masked man steeped his fingers and laid his chin atop them. And what I do, General, I know this. I make problems go away. What would you do if I told you I could rid you of yours? A hand rose, his fingers snapped, producing an audible click in the office. Just like that. It was too good to be true. All things were. And what would you gain from it? Your undying love and affection? If his fingers tightened in the trigger. All right. Have it your way. The masked man straightened, dropping his joyful tone. She has something I want. I suppose you could say someone. So, his hand came down, palms blade in friendship like a long-lost comrade. What do you say? He knew the bastard was grinning. He just knew it. Would care to hear me out? He ought to shoot him. By all rights, he should. And yet, and damn it all, reluctantly, Ironwood lowered his weapon. I'm listening. What did you have in mind? Time, dear General. The masked man reached up, removing his porcelain facade. All I need is a bit of time, a few years, and, well, a few men you won't miss. James winced as he finally beheld the visage within. A migraine manifested between his temples and impinged the bridge of his nose to shake it off. Trance. That was strange. That was all. That sensation just now. Whomever the stranger was, he didn't recognize them. Moreover, they suddenly sounded so reasonable. What was the harm in giving this fellow a few men? This was for the good of Remnant. Surely a few sacrifices were worth that. He cleared his throat and spoke the word that damned him. You'll have them. The masked stranger chuckled softly. I knew you'd see it my way. Previews. Nora gazed down into the pool. Well, she gulped. Here goes nothing. She stepped out over the abyss and plunged in. Right. He pinched the brow of his nose. His head rose. You will all die screaming. So, how were the parents? Blake flopped into the bed. Don't ask me. Ask Ilya. Naruto quirked a blonde brow at the resident chameleon. Wasn't hard to see why, because Ilya was grinning from ear to ear. You may be powerful, but your power means nothing to a shinobi. We are shadows. We strike in the dark. We do not play fair. Cinder quirked a brow. You do realize this means war. Winter stepped forward and pressed her forehead to hers. May the best woman win. Go to begin, they said. It'll be fun, they said. Ospen resisted the urge to smile. He failed. It's only for a semester. You'll have fun. With your skills, initiation ought to be a cakewalk. Oh, I know it'll be. Naruto blinked back at him with a guiltless smile as he sipped his tea. It's the others I'm worried about. A distant explosion put paid to his words. I'll break his legs. Ospen quirked a brow. Nora? Yep. The blonde smacked his lips. I'll have a word with her. Merlot? No, bad idea. Even for you. The mad scientist remained undeterred. But the prize! Salem rose from her throne with a languished smile. Welcome to the family. End of chapter 12.